But whenever it comes down to video, I don't know how to like feel like normal introducing myself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. There we go. That's our introduction. You recorded that, right?
I'm Jacob. I started Mode back in 2019. Most of my career I spent as a software engineer. I think anyone who has spent a lot of time in front of a computer or as a software engineer, or at least for me, I was a little jealous of the people who got to get away from their desk and work with interesting tools and fun equipment, thinking of like photographers and chefs and that sort of thing. And when I first came across mechanical keyboards, I very quickly latched onto it as like, that's the thing. Like I can really nerd out about this and go deep, and I get to use it at work. So it's like even that much more fun, right? In a way, Mode was really just a hobby that got way out of control.
So I'm Matthew Encina. Maybe you've seen me on the channel before or in the peripherals, but I'm now the Chief Design Officer over at Mode, very recent. But prior to that, I've been working as a creative professional for over 20 years now, first as a graphic designer, then in advertising, working on TV commercials and music videos. And then I got into education, making content, and eventually I found my way to keyboards about a little over 3 years ago now. And just like Jacob, it became a healthy obsession, and now I'm part of the team. I mean, it's one of those things now, luckily, it turned into something that was a little bit of an obsession into something more. And I tend to find my way into a lot of things like that, where it generally starts as a genuine curiosity. I get very passionate and go super deep until the point where I was like, oh, I get it now. And then me as the creative starts connecting dots. I was like, why doesn't this exist in the world right now? Why doesn't this exist in this space? Because I would totally buy it right now. Yeah. And so those are things that usually pull me in to start thinking about projects like, oh, what about these keycaps or this design of a keyboard, or how do we integrate wood?
What you said there, like why doesn't this exist right now? That was one of the things I felt a lot, especially in the beginning of my experience with the hobby, was looking at a keyboard and thinking like, wow, I didn't realize keyboards could look like this. Like a keyboard has no business being like this fun, right? Or this interesting or this cool. There's definitely layers to the experience too. I think one is just kind of realizing that our stuff can look and feel more fun than what we're used to and what we're typically receiving from companies. And I think keyboards kind of gave permission to think about products that way. Like it can be a lot more fun than what we typically are used to.
I think that's how I justified my Mode 65 purchase, because it was kind of pricey for what I was used to. But I had gotten a book deal, so I was like, all right, I'm going to be writing a lot. I might as well get a keyboard. Yeah. Like this is my prize.
I felt the same way with like code, you know? It's just like
you want to reward yourself.
Makes it a little more fun, you know?
Yeah. But I do see it as a reward and something that can bring you a lot of joy every day in the things you do.
You know, our lives are a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable when the world around us and our environments are prettier. Mm-hmm. They're more beautiful. Mm-hmm. They're just little bits of joy in the interactions we have with the objects around us. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't just happen. Like you need people to think about that stuff. Right. And specifically like the small things too, right? Yeah, maybe it's just a keyboard, maybe it's just a metal rectangle, but I think it's a worthy pursuit for someone to think about making that a more enjoyable thing to interact with and to look at every day. You've been getting into more, I guess, what would you call it? Like custom pencils and pens, kind of more handmade stuff there. Can you share a little of your experience with that?
Yeah, and I'm also very new, so I will not pretend to know very much about it, but pens can also be a commodity good, something that you buy for $1 or get in a 12 pack for $5. And I didn't realize that there's this whole community of premium pens and pen makers. You don't know until you pick one of these things up and write with it. You realize, oh, it makes writing just a little bit more joyful.
Another thing that comes to mind too is, as we're talking about these more analog things, is the tactile experience. And I think that's probably the connection I'm making with keyboards in my mind. Like the pen and paper, there's just, you feel the friction of the pen against the paper itself has texture. Reading physical books as opposed to like ebooks, there's just something about feeling feeling the pages and turning them yourself. I think all of that just kind of makes the experience a little more enjoyable too. All right, just a few short hours later.
Was it worth the wait?
That's good. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I was gonna say one key thing that I've always appreciated about the Mode brand is the customer service and the community around it. Somebody is responsive and helpful and not condescending, right? It's actually a joyful experience, like you get your stuff solved. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about the brand, and one thing that I'd like to double down on moving forward, which is that human touch, right? So like even when we look at the website, where's your face on there?
Yeah.
Right? Like we see a lot of Chris, which is fantastic, but it's nice that we're actually getting to get you to sit down and be in front of camera and get to hear a little bit more about the story behind Mode. Because for me, one of the reasons, again, why I gravitate to your team is that everybody's so personable. People are empathetic. They care not only about the products, but they care about the customers in a real way.
Yeah, I think that's always been one of the more fun parts of working on this too, is getting to talk with people directly, like especially on Discord, even more so at meetups. I always have a good time getting out there and actually seeing the faces behind the usernames too. You know, in terms of like getting behind the camera more too, I feel like this was a big step for me.
I'm hoping I could push everybody inside to do a little bit more of that, so that people can see the amazing folks behind the brand.
So Matthew, I think one of the reasons we were so excited to have you joining the team was because you're really great at bringing together interesting colors and materials and kind of paying attention to how products look and feel. And I think that's something that we hope to see more of in Mode going forward. So perhaps if you wanted to share a little bit about how you've been thinking about that and some of these conversations we've been having around curating our products more too.
Obviously, Mode already does a lot of things great. There's a lot of colors that I see in other places, whether it's furniture or graphic design and fashion. And I was like, oh, these would all be perfect if they were on a keyboard, but nobody's doing them. At least the way that I kind of want to see them. So I'm really excited to take all of those inspirations and kind of translate it into the products that we make. And you know, it's beyond just like, what is the color of the keyboard? What are the color of like the fasteners and the feet and the keycaps on there? What about the bags? Like there's so much we can do and bring that joy back. Yeah, I'm really excited to just hit the ground running.
Yeah, no, I think we have a really, really busy and exciting year ahead of us. This week was great. We covered a lot of stuff that helps us figure out what are all the really good and the best pieces of Mode that we want to carry forward, and how do we take that and do it even more and even more exciting, right?
That'll be the end. It's like, what about 60% credits?